Welcome to Disruption Blueprint with Shannon Spotswood from RFG Advisory. In this podcast, we help advisors grow their net worth, build their businesses, and maximize their independence. We've built an award-winning platform with innovative technology, comprehensive service, and a team of individuals who are experts in their field to serve advisors. Join us for this journey where we explore everything that has to do with running an independent advisor practice as we bring together successful advisors, industry experts, and innovative minds who are on the bleeding edge to challenge the status quo, foster new ideas, and create a path for advisors to unleash their growth potential. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to Disruption Blueprint. You are in for a really special treat today. We are joined in the studio by Jim Sumpter, who is the founder and CEO of CMC Financial and has quite a story to share. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm so excited to be here.
What is particularly fun about this episode is that you and I started within months of each other at RFG.
Right. I think you started in September, maybe.
I did.
And I started in December.
So within a quarter.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have personally watched your transformational journey of change. And, today, not only have you built a firm that has a very special meaning in its branding and its origin story, but you have really transformed yourself as a professional after 2 decades plus being an advisor.
Yeah, there's no question about that. It's interesting. When I started in this business, it was back in 19-something. So it was 1996. And I started out as a, kind of a stock guy because that's what you did back in 1996. And from 96 to I think 2000, the market basically just went up. So I thought I had hit the greatest career in the history of careers. And then I realized, okay, it can go down. And then we'll get into the story, but that's how I started after spending 3 or so years in banking and then a couple of years in my father's company.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I want to start a little bit at the end and rewind because you have tapped into one of the most exciting growth trends and is certainly going to be a hugely important factor in defining the future of our industry. And that is integrating into CMC advanced tax planning, comprehensive tax planning. And you've done it with, I think, a really innovative approach that included partnering with a CPA, but you didn't make that decision at face value. There was a tremendous amount of analytical research that went into validating the business thesis of, is there opportunity for a financial advisor to partner with a CPA and really, for lack of a better word, mine that client base for advisory opportunities. So let's talk about that. Let's go into how it started with your idea, the process you went through, because there are so many advisors who are looking around, this country and recognizing the number of 1 and 2 man and women shops that are CPA firms without a succession plan in the same way we have a succession crisis in the financial services industry for advisors.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'll take a little bit of a step back and then we'll jump into my partnership with Andy. But so my grandmother for years prepared tax returns. She was not a CPA. She was not an EA. She was a tax preparer. Started her career at H&R Block. And so, I had seen her have her own in-home tax business. But there were years, she did upwards, 70, 80, 90 tax returns. And I watched that. And, I started in the wirehouses, which we'll get to in a second, and I couldn't touch a tax return. Right. Back then it was, please consult your tax and legal advisor because you can't give any. Even though I was a CFP, I wasn't allowed to do that. Well, when I became independent and joined RFG at the end of 2015, that was one thing that Bobby and I talked about is that, yes, I would have the ability with experience and at the comfort level that I was as at, that I could do some tax work. So my grandmother was at the point in time where she was, reaching the end of her career. So I sort of took over her, I think it was 32 clients in the very beginning. And now we've doubled and almost tripled that from a tax planning standpoint. I started out just kind of doing some of the individual returns.
Yeah.
And then that has developed into, I'm sure what we'll get into a lot more, what I think is a super exciting tax practice and tax planning practice, along with all of the other things that I do as a CFP. And then that brings in Andy. So
Yeah.
Andy is a single man practice. He is an advisor, so he has some assets under management, but he has the majority of his clients he does tax work for. And Andy's a little older than I, and he was looking for a succession plan. And now we had worked together and around each other for 6+ years and had tremendous conversations. We would bounce ideas off of each other, but it never really delved into what would this succession plan look like. And then a couple of years ago, you and I sat down and I said, okay, this is the direction I want to go. Where do we go from here? And that's how it started.
Yeah.
So
walk through the analysis that you did to really vet out the idea of partnering with Andy.
Right. So I've always said that, I can look at a tax return and I can find out a tremendous amount about somebody from looking at their tax return, because they essentially have to undress in front of you. Mm-hmm. is the phrase that we use.
Who knew tax work was so sexy?
I had no idea. But they really do, because everything that has to do with their financial life hits that tax return in some form or another. Well, I know enough about it to where I know what I'm looking for when I'm looking at those numbers and say, okay, where's the opportunity? So what we did, we brought in an intern one summer who was a business student. He did an unbelievable job going through Andy's practice and filling in the blanks on. I created a spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets, and I created a spreadsheet of 18 to 20 numbers that I wanted to see, because I wanted to see, is there opportunity there? We did that. We went through the exercise. We did the analysis, and I was like, wow, there is a tremendous amount of opportunity there. So then you and I met again. We talked and we said, okay, how do we start kind of putting this together? And that's how it started.
Has it been successful?
Wildly, and we are just getting started.
So for an advisor who's thinking they want to do this, what do you think are the, 3 things that they really need to vet out as I want to deepen my expertise as it relates to tax planning, and I want to capitalize on this untouched asset?
Right. So, first of all, I think as an advisor that would want to delve into this, you have to ask yourself, how much do I as the advisor want to do? In other words, am I going to be a hands-on person, or am I going to have someone on my team that is the hands-on person, that is the expert that knows, how to do all the prep and things like that? Or am I going to be the person that is, they're sort of a COI, if you will, because that's what we're used to in the industry, is we want to partner with estate planning attorneys. We want to partner with CPAs, things like that. What I did is I took it to the next level and said, I don't want to have COIs. I want to be my own COI.
Right.
And so that's what we're basically creating. So I've done some things to put myself in a position to be able to do that. And so I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is you have to understand how a tax return works. And whether you want to go through those exercises or you don't, as a planner, as a certified financial planner, tax is a very huge part of what we do. And so I know how all the moving pieces work. And tax hits every single part of planning. I don't care what it is. If it's cash flow, estate, investment, doesn't matter. Well, you've got to have a level of expertise to know that, or have someone on your team that has that level of expertise. And then I think the third thing is you got to be willing to take a risk.
Yeah.
And that was something that by nature I'm more conservative, but I took a risk. And boy, is that risk working.
That's such great
It is
advice.
totally paying off. And, but you got to be willing to do that. I think in business and in life and as advisors, we talk to our clients all the time about risk.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's around their investments. Well, this is an investment.
Right.
This was an investment in my business, in my practice, and I had to weigh that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I did.
What is, one of the most exciting things that we get to experience at RFG is because we do so much hands-on strategic planning work. You as you've experienced, you lay the foundation for these game-changing growth moves in your business years before you actually make them. And, so rolling back that clock, as you were going through your metamorphosis and thinking about the legacy that you wanted to leave and the firm that you wanted to build, we talked a lot about, you joined RFG, branded RFG, and then we started talking about, what you wanted to do on the tax side, and we're going to get into your educational journey as well. But a big part of that was, in a lot of ways, reconciling some heartbreaking trauma in your life to build your own brand. And so talk to us about CMC Financial. Share
Okay.
your story, share the origin story, and the great honor that you're doing by building your firm.
Right. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be able to share the story. So CMC Financial, I started when I first joined RFG. I wanted to have my LLC for the tax side. I was branded on the investment side as RFG Advisory, but I started CMC Financial back in 2015. What it stands for, quite honestly, is my kids, Carson, Madison, and Cassidy. And I joke a lot of times. I say my kids get all my money anyway, so I might as well name the company after them. And so I did that, and I will. That is a cool legacy for me, and my kids love that. Why CMC? Family is extremely important to me. I've had a lot of things happen in my world that have shaped me as an advisor. I talk to clients all the time. Clients are clients, but they're also friends. And when a client is coming in brand new and interviewing an advisor, if they don't like you or they don't trust you, it doesn't matter what you know.
Right.
And so I'm a storyteller. I teach by telling stories, and we'll get into education in a minute. So teaching is something that I enjoy doing. I always want, when a client leaves a meeting, I want them to think, wow, that was great information. I'm glad we did that, and I learned something. Whether they learn something about me as an individual, whether they learn something about an investment or a strategy, or whether they learn something about my family, because it's really important to me. I get accused a lot of times of I have a 1 hour meeting, and my 1 hour meetings sometimes take longer than 1 hour, but people understand who I am as a person. So I tell this story on my why video on our website. No parent ever wants to hear your child has cancer. And that happened to us. That happened with Carson, who is the C in CMC. That happened when he was 16 years old. He lived 11 months and 11 and a half months. And boy, I'll tell you, that kid lived more in 11 and a half months than most people do in 70 years. And he taught me as an individual. He taught me how to be a better dad. He taught me how to be a better person. He taught me how to listen. He taught me how to relate. He taught me what's important. And I reflect a lot of those stories of what my kids have taught me in the way that I plan. And I talk a lot about working with families. I have a lot of clients where I work with multi-generations. And so I work with starting out working with grandma. Well, then I get referred to mom and dad, and then I get referred to their kids. And hey, little Johnny just not little, but Johnny just graduated from college. He got his first big boy job. He got this myriad of benefits. He called me and asked me about it. I answered him, but was I right? I get that all the time.
Yeah.
So now what happens is now I'm working with 3 generations, and I have multiple families that I do that with. And I think one of the reasons I've had success in doing that is because of everybody knows my story.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say everyone. A lot of people know my story.
People close to you.
People close to me know my story, but it's becoming more public now, and people see me as an individual, as a planner, as a dad, as a husband. And I think all of those things wrapped up together make me a better planner.
Yeah.
And they look at me and they're like, wow, okay, I can relate to that guy.
Yeah.
And that guy, everybody's been through stuff. And not all stuff is the same.
Yeah.
But if you've been through stuff and you can kind of relate it back, that's what we were able to do, and sort of what we're able to do, and why I tell the story. We'll get into the branding in a little bit, but our branding is very, very specific.
Get into it now. Talk about it.
So we were branded as RFG for the first, I guess, 6.5 years.
Yeah.
And I had thought about, whatever, want to brand as another brand. It's a lot of work. It's social media, it's website, you got to think.
Podcasting.
I'm not a marketing guy, but I enjoy marketing. So started working with a marketing company a little over a year ago, and right at a year ago, really. And I said, and they started asking me a whole bunch of questions. What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to try to do? What's your color scheme? And I'm like, I have no idea,
Right.
And then I started thinking about it. So I go to the kids, I go to Madison and Cassidy, and I said, okay, what are your favorite colors? And Madison says, okay, well, mine's teal. I know Carson's is green. And Cassidy goes, well, mine's pink. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't use pink on a financial logo. And she looks at me dead serious, and she goes, why not? And I didn't have a great answer.
Right.
So if you look at our logo, one of the corners of the puzzle piece is pink.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it pops, it steps out. People love it.
Yeah.
And then the other color is yellow. My favorite color is red, but I was told by marketing people that you can't use red on a financial logo. So I changed to yellow. And so that's our color scheme.
Your favorite color specifically is crimson.
My favorite color specifically is crimson. That is correct. That is correct. It's a very deep, rich, championship type red. Yes. Yes.
Well, one of the things that's so amazing about your story and branding CMC Financial is it is, exhibit 1 through 100 of what happens when an advisor allows themselves to be vulnerable and allows themselves to be authentic and to start showing all the sides of humanity, including the parts that we try and, hide away under a professional veneer. And it was, to me, it feels like the second that you uncorked CMC Financial as your firm